Hey guys, and welcome to the very first episode of Mobile Madness, your destination for detailed overviews on fun, free mobile games for your Android and iOS devices. I'm Enigmius, and today we're taking a look at Evolution Battle for Utopia. This is a sci-fi action RPG developed by Studio ITT for My.com Games. It's available for Android and iOS, and in fact, the iOS version already has the Black Legion expansion, which adds a ton of new content. So if you're wondering why the version I'm playing on looks a little bit different, it's because I'm playing on Android and it doesn't have the expansion yet. This is a free-to-play game. It does have a cash shop where you can buy certain resources, but it's a nice-to-have feature, not a need-to-have. You can play the game all the way through without it. The backstory is that you're the commander of an expedition sent to find out what happened to the colony on planet Utopia. This was supposed to be Earth 2.0. Our Earth has become more or less uninhabitable, but unfortunately this colony that was sent ahead to terraform planet Utopia and get it ready has stopped responding to all communication, so you're supposed to find out what happens. You arrive to the planet, and let's just say your ship makes it to the surface, albeit in more pieces than you expected. And then you get a nice cinematic that shows you how your escape pod is transformed into your base of operations that gets you started. And then you're basically into the game. Now, the bulk of the game is comprised of basically three main elements. There's the combat system, which is what really impressed the hell out of me. We'll be taking a detailed look at that momentarily. There's the resource system, which is very Russian, and I mean that in the best possible way. If you've played the Metro series, you know that they're very big on resource scarcity. There's never enough of anything. We're going to take a look at that. And then there's the exploration, which is a very integral part of the game. And despite the fact that it's not technically complex, I found it to be still very entertaining. So we're going to take a look at that as well. Now, as far as the combat goes, it's a very active and strategic combat system. Its appearance is very reminiscent of the old school RPGs when they started going 3D, and you have your guys lined up on one side and the other guys, the bad guys, are lined up on the other side, and then you go at it. It's a real-time system. It's very real-time system. And it's made up of a bunch of elements on both sides. As far as your side of the line, you've got yourself, of course. We're going to talk about that momentarily, but you've also got a partner, and when you first start the game, your partner is a little robot dog. I mean, he's kind of neat. He's not super useful. He's got some things going for him. But as you progress through the game, you'll meet more characters that you can swap in as your partner, and makes things potentially a whole lot easier. For one, you can train up your partner, and as you train them, their damage increases, but also they contribute health to you. So instead of having their own health bar, their hit points are basically added to your health bar, so you only have to manage the one, and that increases as well the more you train those units. You can get different kinds of weapons that are specialized for different kinds of situations. But realistically, they're a bit of a damage boost. They boost your health points, and you don't otherwise have to worry about them. You don't control them. They can't be damaged. They can't die. They're just there. Eye candy, maybe. But they can be very, very helpful in situations. As far as what you actually do control and use, you've got a variety of weapons, and the most important of those weapons is your pistol. Of all things, it's your primary weapon, and the reason why it's the most important weapon you have is because you have unlimited ammunition for it. You do have to reload it, but the pool of ammunition that you draw from for those reloads is unlimited. Everything else, every other weapon, the ammunition can be consumed, and then you have to figure out how you're going to get more ammunition. Now, the secondary weapons that have that consumable ammunition are your choice of a shotgun, an assault rifle, or a machine gun. Now, you unlock access to these as you progress through the game by getting schematics to make them, and then you can also get schematics later on for new versions of that same kind of weapon. You also have to get the ammunition for those weapons, and that's where the consumable aspect comes into play. You can occasionally get ammunition from encounters, but it's not a lot when you do get it. You can get it from loot caches as well, and again, not a lot when you do get it. You can buy it from the itinerant merchant, which is a guy who appears on the map from time to time. He never has a lot of it, and it's really only economical to buy it from him when you've been dealing with him for a certain amount of time, and your reputation with him has brought the prices down. So that's something to remember, and in most cases, eventually you can learn how to make your own ammunition, which Still isn't free, you still have to invest the resources to make the ammunition, but it gives you a little bit more access to it. If you can spend the time, you have basically, your limitation is only the amount of time you have to spend babysitting the building that makes the ammunition, the armory, and the amount of resources you have to make it. So essentially you have your pistol and then one slot where you can choose which weapon you want to bring into combat. So you can't bring all three and just mix and match as you go. You have to choose one and you have to stick with it through the entire encounter. So there's some limitations, but there are benefits. The shotgun is exceptionally powerful at close range. There are a number of different bad guys who like to get right up in your face, and when they do, you put a shotgun on them, they tend to fall down pretty quick in most cases. Not all, but most. You've got the assault rifle, which fires faster than the pistol and hits harder per shot. Of course, the drawback and the limitation versus the pistol is that the assault rifle can run out of ammunition. And then there's the machine gun, which fires faster than the assault rifle and hits for about the same amount of damage per shot, but the ammunition is even more restricted in the regular version of the game. Prior to the Black Legion expansion, you can't make your own machine gun ammunition. You have to buy it from the itinerant merchant or get it from drops, which means it's limited quantities. You kind of stockpile it and then use it for special occasions. And those are the three weapons that you have to deal with. Now, there's different kinds of ammunition. Well, it's not really different kinds of ammunition. You use the same ammunition for each one, but you get different weapons with different properties. There's the regular projectile weapons. You get incendiary weapons that get a bonus damage to flesh. You get acid weapons that get bonus damage to armor. And if you're really, really lucky, you can get energy weapons that do normal damage to flesh and 50% damage to armor, which doesn't sound that impressive, but if you compare it to regular projectile weapons that do 0 damage to armor, energy weapons are kind of cool. So that's something to keep in mind. In addition to the weapons, you have a shield that you can use in combat. The nice thing about it, you don't have to buy it, you don't have to research it, you don't have to pay for anything to use it. It's just a shield, and you swipe down on your character in combat and he'll duck behind an energy shield which blocks most projectile damage. And what I say by most means every shot that hits the shield is still going to damage you a little bit, but not as much as if you were just standing there taking it to the face. It doesn't do anything against grenades, and it doesn't do anything against melee attacks. So again, it's something to keep in mind, but it's a very strategic element that you will make regular use of. One of the benefits of the shield is when you duck behind your shield, if you swipe down again, you can force reload your weapon. So if timing says this would be a good time to reload my weapon even though it's not empty, you duck behind your shield and that's what you do. It's very, very useful. Of course, you have grenades. Similar to the weapons, you have different types of grenades. You have incendiary and acid, as well as the regular frag grenades. Very, very useful for armored opponents and people who like to hide behind shields and annoy you. Playing whack-a-mole with some of these guys. Resource limited. You have to make them if you have the schematics to make them, which costs resources, or you have to buy them, which costs more resources, or occasionally you'll get them from drops, from loot caches and encounters. And then there's med packs. Same deal. Restores your health in combat. The amount is determined by the tier of the med pack, tier 1, 2, 3. You can make them. If you have this schematic, you can find them, you can buy them. And stasis grenades, which are extremely limited in availability, in a different category from other grenades, because stasis grenades, when you throw one, it basically slows down time dramatically for a period of time. So if you're waiting on an important cooldown, or you need to reload a weapon or something in a clutch, and you have a stasis grenade, you can basically use that to buy yourself a little bit of extra time. Through the entire playthrough that I did, I think I came across maybe 3, and I'm being generous with that. They're not very common, but very, very handy if you do have them. That's your side of the proverbial line. On the other side, there's all kinds of different enemy characteristics and mechanics, and the game does a really good job of teaching them to you as you encounter new kinds of enemies. It's one of the games where the kind of enemy that was a boss for one area becomes a regular monster in all of the areas after that, so you kind of learn with the boss how to handle them, and then they become a part of the regular routine going forward. When you start adding up all of these different enemy abilities into these different encounters and encountering them at once, that's where things just go absolutely crazy. And that's the strength of the combat system, is because you can have so much going on, and it's one of those situations that really, really lends itself very, very well to the touchscreen kind of interface, because you'll have, for example, you swipe to duck behind your shield and to swipe again to reload. The enemies, when they throw grenades, you see a little red target ring flying towards you. You can tap on them, and if you hit it, you destroy the grenade in midair so that you don't have to die, because grenades always hurt. That's guaranteed, they always hurt. You've got enemies that start to glow red, and when they do, that means anything that they do that would hurt you is going to hurt even more. So you have to be aware of that. You have to prioritize who you're going to kill and when. You've got guys that become weak at various different points, and there's a little orange circle that kind of appears on them, and you want to get onto them when they're weak like that, because they die so much faster. But it may not be convenient, because you have guys like snipers who have this weird routine where they make this siren sound, and you have to alternate between ducking behind your shield and standing up, and then behind your shield and standing up for the duration of the siren. And if you don't, you get hit with this extremely powerful attack that not only does a ton of damage, it knocks you on your ass and leaves you vulnerable for a few seconds. So if you're wanting to go after the guy with the orange circle, but the sniper's causing problems, maybe you have to ignore the orange circle and just worry about surviving. Though that's just the tip of the iceberg. All kinds of different things that go on. Like I say, extremely good job of teaching you how to handle each individual kind of enemy, but then once you're through that teaching phase, you're on your own to put it together when they all come at you at once. So huge props for the combat system in this game. This is what really kind of blew my mind, and definitely would keep me coming back. I'm just waiting for the Black Legion expansion. You have no idea.
Guys, let's finish them.
I'm just so fond of myself.
So that brings us to the resources part of the game, and I don't want to go into a ton of detail on each of these resources because the game does a pretty good job of explaining it to you as you go, or at least it doesn't need explanation. You can just kind of figure it out as you go along. But one of the central themes of the game is that you never have enough of anything, and that applies whether you're wanting to build something, upgrade something, expand something, train something. There's a lot of different costs that you can get involved in, a lot of different ways that you can improve upon what you've got, and very few ways to pay for it. I think it's the best way I can put it. Now, sometimes when we see this in games with a cash shop, we say, oh, they're just trying to entice us to spend money. I don't think really that's the case with this game. I think it's just very much the feel of the game. People who played Metro know what I mean about the scarcity of resources and ammunition, having to get by with less than what you would like. No one blamed that game for trying to entice you to spend real money, because there were no microtransactions. That was just a part of the game, and you dealt with it or not. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, based on how I felt about the game after I had gone through that process, especially towards the end when things were a little easier to come by, it's not a microtransactions thing. It's not an enticement thing. If you have some money and you feel like supporting the devs, I always encourage that. You can make your life a little easier, but it's not necessary in order to progress. Now, just to list some of the different resources and currencies that you can pick up from a variety of different things. There's the biofuel that you get. You have a biofuel reactor given to you basically at the very beginning of the game, or offered dirt cheap, I can't remember. You have magnetite and iron, which are produced through mines that you will build in specific locations. By the time you're done the first continent, you'll have 2 of each mine that you can upgrade so that it produces faster and stores more. There's crystals and gems, which are on the rare side, more so the gems. Gems are one of the things you can buy with real money, but crystals, fastest way to get those is to hack or nuke dominators. They're big black robots, the ones that walk around on the map. Hacking doesn't really cost as much, but sometimes it's quite difficult. Nuking them costs a fair bit in terms of resources to make the Phoenix missile, but pretty much guaranteed a win. Gems, mostly from missions, is where I've got mine. I've got over 1,000 gems invested in my game, unlocking turret hardpoints, unlocking the bandolier to double my ammunition capacity, the ability so that I can tap on an enemy unit in the field and see what units I'll be fighting and how many of them. All this stuff unlocked with gems, and gems that I got while playing the game. So important to note. And then there's other kinds of currencies. You've got metals that are used for upgrading weapons and training your partners. You've got data disks, which is the currency you need to take part in the hacking events. And then you've got strategy and tactics tokens, which are earned from the missions with yellow icons in the islands south of the main continent. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. It's not just one or two resources and you kind of set them up and gather them and whatever. There's a lot of different things at play. And when you come into the whole idea of I need X and Y for grenades and ammunition that's coming from this place, that place, except that's not very fast, so I should go maybe try and do some missions for that thing, and now all of a sudden I'm like 20 minutes later still doing missions. That's where a lot of the gameplay comes from, is just connecting the dots to go from what you have to what you need to what you want to do. And fortunately, most of it is done through the combat system, which is fantastic. The other area that we want to talk about is the exploration. Now, this, like I said, isn't technically demanding, but it's very detailed, and I felt it was very well done. The maps themselves are just 2D images that are extremely detailed. When you are given access to a new map to explore, you'll first arrive and it's only one little area that's uncovered, and you and your partner, your little tiny guys, will be walking around down there. There'll usually be some bad guys for you to fight, and then once you've cleared enough bad guys in an area, there will be little arrows on the ground that turn green, and you can tap on one of those and it'll move you to the next area and uncover it so that you can see, and you continue that way. You kill all the bad guys, you gather all the loot, and you go through and you explore the entire map. Once the entire map is uncovered, you have the option to terraform it, which can be a little bit spendy, but not too bad. And when you do, it goes from the dystopian kind of barren, almost desert-like sort of environment to the lush green sort of place that this Utopia was supposed to be when it was going to be Earth 2.0, and also qualifies that map as a spawn location for anomalies, which is a little mini game that we'll talk about momentarily. In addition to the encounters, the fights that you have on a map, which is usually about 20 or 25 encounters per map, there's loot caches. Like I say, as long as there's no monsters guarding it, you can just tap on the little green circle for a loot cache and loot pops out, you gather it up. There are containers that you can hack to open. There's loot in those, and quite often schematics for better weapons, better armor, whatever. There's a study feature on most maps, if not all of them. You'll come across an area where when it's uncovered, you'll see kind of like a orange square that says study and an arrow pointing to some sort of landmark. And when you hit study, it opens up a little mini game. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You have a board on one side and a bunch of pieces on the other, and you have to fit them all onto the board so that it completes the picture. And then for doing that, you get a bit of backstory. The loot that was, supposed to come from there, occasionally schematics, but usually ammunition, grenades, med packs, stuff like that. It's well worth doing whether you care about the story or not, and it's kind of fun. A little jigsaw puzzle minigame in the middle of all this intense combat. And that's the exploration side of things. It's not particularly complicated, but I found it really entertaining, first of all, and rewarding in the sense of you want to see what's around the next corner, whether it's for the story or for the loot or for the bad guys. I really enjoyed it. And that brings us to the secondary game elements, all of the little things on the side that you don't really think of until you play a game without them. You get kind of bored, maybe. There are a lot of things going on that can allow you to augment your resource acquisition, very important, and also just to kind of break things up so that you're not involved in the exact same activities all the time. First of all, there's recurring missions. These refresh every 30 minutes, so whether you do some or all of the missions on the list, after 30 minutes they're replaced with a new list. Most of them are combat missions, and they're ranked terror ranks 1 through 4, 1 being not too bad, 4 being probably bring some grenades and med packs kind of thing. There's some hacking missions that you can do, which are typically fun. I like the connect the dots one the most for whatever reason. I don't know exactly why, but I do. And early in the game, which it goes away later in the game, but early in the game there's a really simple mission where you have to go around a map and find mines and tap on them to make them blow up and go away, and it's just an easy way to get cheap resources. There's the itinerant merchant, and I look at him as kind of like a side event sort of thing, not only because he's a merchant you can buy and sell, but because he's got a couple of devices usually that you can hack, and successfully hacking them will increase your reputation with them faster. You do earn reputation with him for each purchase and sale that you make, but it's faster if you hack your way to fame and glory. The higher your reputation, the lower his prices. So it's a pretty good deal, well worth looking into. The anomalies that I mentioned, this is my favorite little mini event. Basically, terraforming a map means that that map is eligible to have anomalies spawn whenever an anomalies event kicks off. You'll hear a notification saying that the presence of anomalies has been detected, and the maps that have anomalies on them will start to glow with the green ring and the light column that indicate there's something interesting going on there. You go there and you'll find, first of all, a little circle in the middle of your screen with arrows that point to where all the anomalies are. The anomalies are just like little sparky orbs. And you go to one and you tap on it and it basically explodes into loot. You go to the next one and you tap on it and it explodes into loot. You tap on the loot to gather it, you move on. And there's a research arc that you can take part in that goes from very simple anomalies give you things like biofuel, iron, and magnetite, to expanding on them so that they have the chance to give you crystals and eventually gems. So it's well worth doing. By the time you've got most or all of the map uncovered, and by the map I mean all of the different maps on the continent, and terraformed, the number of anomalies that you can get in a single event can make the loot acquisition a lot higher than you might have thought. It's actually really well worth taking part in the event, and it's a nice break. It's very casual, there's no risk, there's no, intense thought process involved. It's a nice counter to the combat system. There's the base defense minigame, which when you first start into the game and you're on the map where all of your structures or most of your structures will end up, one of the first things you'll notice is that you've got 4 turrets. There's also 2 hard points where you can add more turrets for a total of 6, and the turrets are in sort of lanes that lead down to the bottom of the map. When the event kicks off, the base defense event kicks off, spiders and worms mostly. There's not a lot of variety in the bugs on the planet. They start moving towards your structures from the bottom of the map, past your turrets, and if they get to your structures, they explode beside them and damage the structure. And it's not a question of how much health does your structure have, it's either damaged or it's not. If it is damaged, you pay a very small resource fee, and then it runs the repair cycle, which is under 10 minutes, and then it's back to normal, good as new. The downside is that almost every structure has some sort of thing that it can do that takes more than just a few minutes to do. For example, the Phoenix missile takes 2 hours to make. If a bug runs up beside the silo and explodes and damages it when a missile you were making had 5 minutes left on the timer, after the building is repaired, you'll notice that the timer to make the missile has gone back up to 2 hours. So it resets the timer on any production you had going on in a damaged building, which is unfortunately something that is incentive to not let the bugs past your turrets into the structures. And you can kill the bugs, you can help your turrets a lot by just tapping on the bugs as they're moving up. And each time you tap on a bug, it's as though you shot it and it does a little bit of damage. So you just tap on all the bugs and make them die. It's kind of a fun little game. Now, one of the things that you'll be tasked with building fairly early in the game is a helipad. And with that, you get a helicopter, which allows you to travel to the archipelago to the west of the continent, where your main base is, and also to the islands south of the continent. The archipelago is where all the PvP is. It's PvP in the sense of how a lot of mobile games do it, where you're basically just getting information from a database saying that player Bob is level 15 and he has a guy with such and such armor and weapon, and he's got 2 partners that are Bob B and Bob C, and that's what you fight when you get into the encounter. And beyond that, it's basically like any other PvE battle. There's some balance things. It's usually most convenient to attack guys who are much lower level than you, because you get the same ranking improvements whether they're way below you or way above you. Other than that, the benefit of taking part in the PvP is that your ranking influences the rewards that you get from doing the recurring missions. So I've done 2 rank ups worth of fighting in the PvP kind of thing, so that I would get more resources from each of the missions that I did in the recurring missions list. It was worth doing. I wouldn't say that PvP is sort of the shining element of the game, just because it really is like so many other mobile games. It's PvE named after a character, basically, is what it boils down to. Once you have your helipad, also, you go to the islands in the south, and that's where you find the strategy and tactics operations. Those are the extended missions that you can do. Instead of just an encounter with, say, 12 bad guys, they're really long waves. Wave after wave of bad guys. 40 to 41 monsters per encounter. And there are 2 encounters that you can do. One involving bugs and one involving people. There are different objectives for each encounter that you will have, like for example, kill 10 guys with an assault rifle. And if you do part of the objective and then either aren't able to complete all of the waves, or you complete all of the waves but only still got part of the objective done, the next day when it unlocks again for you, you can continue on where you left off. So if you had to kill 10, you killed 3, you only have to kill 7 now on the next day until you complete it. When you complete it, you get strategy and tactics tokens as a reward. Really straightforward once you get into it, and very well worth doing because there's a lot of things that you can get out of the strategy and tactics tokens that you really can't get anywhere else. Beyond that, anything else that I've intentionally missed or unintentionally missed, it's good to have a few things left over for you guys to discover on your own and kind of figure out what's going on. Overall, I would say the game's biggest strength is the combat, followed closely by the exploration. Even if you're not into the exploration at all, the combat is still good enough to give this game a shot and see how you like it, because first of all, it's free. You can download it for free. It's not a big deal. But also, it does it different than any other game that I've played on a mobile device. Right now, there are a lot of people out there trying to redo like Dynasty Warriors with the controller on your touchscreen sort of thing. This one just takes and does the exact opposite and actually gives you an interface that makes sense for a touchscreen. It's fantastic. I really enjoyed it. We have to talk a little bit about the shortcomings. First of all, the resource scarcity, we have to acknowledge. If that's the kind of thing that really frustrates you, it's going to really frustrate you because it's there. You have to invest some time into getting your ducks in a row before you can charge into the next mission sometimes. I was able to get past it. If you're enjoying the combat enough, you'll probably be able to get past it too. One thing that I really couldn't get past, well, I could, but it wasn't in the best way possible, is combat health regen is done by med packs. That's the only way to get health, and psi strikes. Out of combat, if you're missing health from the last encounter, it regens on its own, but it's painfully slow. When you first start out, brand new character, it regenerates at the rate of 100 health per minute. 100 health per minute. My character has over 2,700 health right now, having finished all of the map exploration content in the game and basically gotten all the experience that I can until Black Legion hits the Android version. If I'm getting out of an encounter with a sliver of health left, it's going to take up to close to half an hour of doing nothing to regenerate. Which to me, if you're playing a game that's focused around the combat, keeping you away from the combat because of really slow health regen is kind of a pain in the butt. There are 2 things you can do within the game to address this. One is you can upgrade that health regen. It's not cheap. It's actually done with strategy and tactics tokens, and it increases for every upgrade at the rate of 20 health per minute. So you start out with 100, after you upgrade it's 120, upgrade again it's 140. I upgraded to 120, saw the next was 140, realized what I was getting myself into and just said no, I'm not doing this anymore. It's a very, very slow health regen. The other option is you can get little things that you can use out of combat that regenerate 300 health each, and you can just spam them until you're full health. You can get one with the daily login bonus every day, and the rest you can buy with real money. Maybe gems, but I wouldn't want to be spending gems on these because you go through them like candy if you were using them on a regular basis. Not a really good solution one way or the other. The solution that I came up with was put the game away. When I was badly damaged and I didn't feel like waiting 15-20 minutes in the game before I could get back to things, I would just either turn my phone off, turn the screen off, or exit the game altogether and go play something else until my health was back up. That's not really ideal for me, but that was the way that I dealt with it. There's a couple of events in the Android version. Now, speaking only of the Android version, as far as I know, they work fine in the iOS version, that don't work properly. One of them requires the Black Legion in order to give you the reward that you're entitled to for completing the event. without that reward, it's very, very tedious. It costs you resources no matter how you look at it. It's the mind capture event, if you're wondering. I'm not going to go into tons of detail on what the event involves, but your mind gets captured, you lose the resources that were in it, and it stops producing more resources until you deal with the person who captured it, which costs you either consumables to kill them very, very quickly or health to kill them a little bit more slowly, but in which case they will do quite a bit of damage to you in the process. It's not ideal. If you have the Black Legion expansion installed, apparently, at the very least, she supposedly gives you the coordinates of one of the maps that kicks off the expansion, and I think she also gives a weapon schematic. The other event is a base defense event that's supposed to be, it's the Overlord. It's a great big bug with a funky mouth. It's a circular mouth with like teeth pointing inwards. Very, very creepy. He's supposed to be something that you can fight in normal combat like you would do any other encounter. He appears on your base. Basically, the icon that you use to go to your base turns red, and if you tap on it, it brings up a little screen saying that the Overlord is there. You're supposed to have the option then to fight him in normal combat, and if you win, there's a weapon schematic and some other goodies for doing so. If you choose not to fight him, or you try to fight him and fail, after half an hour, he goes into base attack mode, where it's just like the base defense minigame. He and all of his little creepy crawlies start moving up the map towards your base. Your turrets can help fight him off, but he's got a ton of health. So early in the game, before you've got upgraded turrets and the extra 2 turret hardpoints, he usually gets through and damages one of your buildings. If you manage to kill him in base defense mode, you'll be lucky if you get a crystal. Usually it's just a little bit of biofuel. It's really not worth doing the event, but you can't not do the event unless you want to have to pay to repair your buildings. So those things, I would prefer that those kinds of events be disabled, as opposed to just leaving them there and, oh well guys, sorry, we'll fix it when we fix it, or wait for Black Legion. Other than that, really, those 2 events, bugged events, if you look at how many bugs we find in other games and other genres, desktop, all that other stuff, not enough to turn up my nose at the game at all. They're just good to be aware of, that there are some hiccups here and there in the Android version, so that you can avoid them or at least handle them in a way that doesn't leave you feeling disappointed. Overall, based on the combat system and the exploration, I would be very comfortable giving this game a solid 4 out of 5 stars rating, and a high recommendation to check it out, download it, see if it's to your liking. That'll be it for our overview of Evolution Battle for Utopia. We'll be doing more of these as soon as I can produce them. If you want to be notified when I add more Mobile Madness overviews for other games, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel or follow me on the social media. Links for social media are in the information section below the video. Please do leave your comments and feedback on the games, the format, me, whatever you want in the comments section below the video. As always, thanks for watching, guys, and take care.